July 24th, 1915, Chicago River. SS Eastland rolls at the dock, still tied off. In under a minute, she is on her side. About 844 will die. No storm, no open water. Just a ship that always leaned, made top heavy over time, with the weight sitting too high. On board are picnic crowds, Western Electric families, children below deck. In this video, we follow the timeline from boarding to silence, and how a familiar list became a trap in calm water. Because the dock can feel like safety, right up until it isn't. Before it failed, it was routine. SS Eastland is a Great Lakes excursion steamer. A river routine, boarding lines, picnic tickets, families moving in clusters toward open decks. Normally, stability is simple. 1. Weight stays low. 2. Ballast stays steady. 3. The hull pulls back to level. A dock feels like protection, calm water, help within shouting distance. But Eastland carries a history. She leans easily. Crew expect it. Over years, the weight creeps upward. Added structures, added equipment. After Titanic, more safety gear comes aboard. More mass up high, without a full redesign beneath it. That morning, the Chicago River is still. Overcast. No waves. By 7:15, the first list begins. It isn't dramatic, so it blends into the noise. 6:30 a.m. Clark Street Dock. Boarding begins. SS Eastland is still tied off. Lines move. Families step aboard in groups. Picnic clothes, lunch pails, kids holding hands. The river doesn't move, the ship does. 6:50 to 7:05. The decks begin to fill. People drift upward for air and space. Upper rails crowd first, because that's where the view is. Approximately 7:15. A slight list to port, not a shock. A familiar lean. Crew respond like it's routine. Ballast is checked. Water is pumped. Weight is adjusted. But Eastland is sensitive. Because the center of mass sits high, small shifts don't stay small, they multiply. Here was the first gate. They could stop boarding and clear the decks, or keep loading while they tried to correct the list. They chose correction over stopping, because it still looked manageable at the dock. Approximately 7:20. Boarding continues. The list returns, then holds. Passengers notice. Some step toward the rail to look. Not panic, curiosity. A quiet gathering on the wrong side. 7:23. The angle is visible now. Furniture begins to slide. Loose items roll and stop, then roll again. The correction attempts continue. They try to trim her back. They treat it as a balance problem that can be managed in place. Here was the second gate. They could treat the renewed list as a stop condition, or treat it as routine and buy time with ballast and pumping. They chose routine, and the margin kept thinning. Because while the ship is correcting, the crowd is still moving, and the deck is still filling. 7:26 to 7:27. The list deepens in pulses. A few degrees, then more. A pause, another pull. Then the ship stops coming back. 7:28. The roll accelerates. 30 to 40 seconds. A sudden rotation to port. Deck becomes wall. Stairwells twist into choke points. Below decks fill with weight. People, benches, cabinets, all moving the same direction. Outside, the dock is right there. Help is right there. The air is right there. But the openings are now sideways, and the paths don't work. The ship is still tied to Chicago, but inside, nothing is level anymore. After the roll, Eastland doesn't sink. She settles. The river is shallow, but it feels high. Water presses against portholes that were never meant to be exits. Inside, direction disappears. A floor becomes a wall. A hallway becomes a chute. Benches slide. Cabinets break loose. Metal scrapes metal. People shout, then stop, because shouting needs air. Below deck, air pockets form in corners. Breaths are counted. Hands search along ceiling rails that used to be handrails. Light comes in sideways, a pale strip through a window, then darkness again. The smell is river water, oil, wet wood, and something hot from machinery that hasn't decided it's finished. There is no horizon here, no open sea, just the dock a few feet away, close enough to hear footsteps, too far to reach. On the outside, voices gather fast. Orders, ropes, the bite of axes into wood panels, glass cracking. A porthole becomes a doorway. From inside, it's muffled, like the city is speaking through a wall. Some survivors climb onto the exposed hull above the waterline, staring down at Chicago like it's another shore. Others don't have that option, pinned under stairs, trapped behind doors that now open upward. Rescuers pull people out through portholes, one arm, then a shoulder. Sometimes a child first because there's room. Sometimes nothing moves, and the hands let go. Minutes stretch. The ship is quiet in patches, loud in others. A pocket of cries, a pocket of nothing. Then only tapping, somewhere inside the steel. Above them, sunlight hits the river. Below them, water keeps climbing. The ship creaks once, then goes still. When it ends, reality returns as numbers. Rescue begins before the ship stops moving. Because Eastland never leaves the dock, help is immediate. Police, firefighters, dock workers. Ropes go down, axes go in, portholes become exits. By midday, the river band turns into a ledger. Names shouted, lists written, bodies carried to temporary morgues. The count shifts for days. Different records don't match perfectly, but it settles around 844 dead. At first, a simple story spreads. Too many people, a rush to one side, panic. A crowd did this. Then the second story begins, made of testimony and inspection. Eastland had listed before. Stability worries had been raised, and the ship's weight had crept upward over years. Added structures, added equipment, and safety gear required after Titanic, much of it sitting high. Investigators circle the same findings. An unstable vessel with a high center of gravity, limited writing ability for the load that morning, and a failure to treat the early list as a stop condition. Boarding continued. Corrections were attempted. The margin kept shrinking. The failure wasn't one thing. It was chronic instability, made worse by accumulated top weight and routine decisions at the dock, until recovery was no longer possible. Afterward, the language turns technical. Stability standards, ballast, inspection. But no revision can rewind 728. Recommendations follow. Better stability testing, stricter passenger limits. The legal story drags. No senior executives go to prison. Civil suits stretch on for years, then decades. And the ship doesn't disappear. She is raised, refitted, sold to the Navy, renamed USS Wilmette, A training ship on the lake, as if steel can be reassigned. But reports don't hold the feeling of it. Places do. Some disasters vanish at sea. They happen beyond the horizon, and distance softens the shape of what happened. Eastland is remembered because there was no distance. A ship on her side in a city river, still tied to wood and iron, close enough for crowds to gather, close enough for the living to hear the trapped. That closeness creates a false comfort. If you can touch it, your mind assumes it can be controlled. If the dock is beside you, your body assumes you can step away. But safety isn't only steel, it's balance. It's the margin that lets a vessel come back. It's the moment a lean is named early enough for routine to stop pretending. That morning, the warning was small, until it wasn't. The correction felt reasonable, until it wasn't. And the roll was quick enough to turn paths into walls before belief could catch up. In the records, the language is mechanical: list, ballast, center of gravity. In memory, it's simpler: a picnic morning that tilted. Chicago kept the evidence in daylight. A tragedy measured in feet, not miles. Between what was and what remains, there lies the liminal. Liminal, where history fades into myth.